Okay. So welcome everybody. I know this was it's a lovely Wednesday evening, and I thank you all for coming and joining with us tonight. We got a couple of good updates about the neighborhood, a couple of things that are going on, just kind of that we've been doing, as well as stuff that we've learned about certain developments in the neighborhood. As always, if you have questions, there'll be time for ask questions at the end. But if you have questions in the middle, raise your hand, type it in the chat, and we'll be happy to answer them. Someone should be monitoring the Facebook Live feed so we can also answer those questions as well. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Share that. I think we see. All right. Everyone can see my little slideshow here. Cool. All right. So just a couple of brief things here that we're going to go over. So we've got so over the past, I think it was 2 months ago, we applied for this eTOD grant that we actually subsequently won. So we're going to go over kind of what that means and kind of the next steps with that. I've got a couple things, some neighborhood developments that have happened since our last meeting in July. We're going to talk a little bit about the census results. Those are slowly coming out, and then what that means for very locally, the ward specifically, and kind of what that means for us, and kind of involves that. And then lastly, this Chicago Community Challenge application that we submitted, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago now, for some things that are people wanted to see in the neighborhood surrounding some city-owned properties. So I'm going to turn over to Liz to talk about the eTOD pilot program grant that we got. So Liz, whenever you're ready, go right ahead.
Sure. So we, I think folks may know, if they don't, a lot of McKinley Park is in sort of eTOD eligible, which means per an ordinance that was passed last year, the year before, corridors that are along sort of major public transit ways are eligible for kind of certain zoning and development under this equitable transit-oriented development ordinance. And a set of groups have been really working to figure out how do we support making sure that development is equitable and that it is sort of oriented toward supporting public transit, supporting pedestrians, supporting bike riders, all of that. And so they have been giving out they did some micro grants to groups that are trying to move development that's in that line. And our neighborhood plan speaks a lot to it. So we made it to get a micro grant, which is like a $3,000 grant, but it's a grant that we're going to put towards helping to do some kind of visual survey work or visual renderings of what it is that residents in the neighborhood really want, particularly along kind of the Ashland corridor from the train station going south, and then along by the 35th and Archer Orange Line station. And so we'll be engaging a lot of neighbors to sort of look through and talk about what do we want, and then having folks help us really put together visuals of it so people can get a real sense of what kind of preferences we have. There's also a larger grant that we made it through the first round of granting for, that would be for a larger grant that we would help support some of that. It would also help us getting technical assistance and technical support around doing some traffic study work, because there are some pretty big concerns about sort of how traffic is looking and by the Orange Line station on 35th and Archer, particularly how that Dunkin' Donuts is going to impact it. And then also really getting technical support on thinking about how to move the kind of zoning changes that may be helpful for us in really supporting the type of development that the neighborhood plan speaks to. So that we're in phase 2 of that grant application. Kate, you want to add anything to that? And I'm just looking down to see who else is in the meeting, if anyone else.
Yeah, sorry, I'm distracted. Yeah, I quick to say, which is that we've contacted some folks at UIC about possibly helping us with these visual renderings, but we would also be really happy to crowdsource anyone who knows someone who does that kind of work. And also to take, input as it is now about what people would like to see on South Ashland. Certainly not more distribution centers. We got that message, but there are some empty lots, there are vacant houses, there are commercial spaces. So like, what would people want to have there as we move forward with this?
Yeah, and I will mention we have an eTOD committee of volunteers. So if anyone is interested in joining that committee, you can you can drop it in the chat, or you can shoot an email to our our email, or sort of make a comment on the Facebook page, and we'll loop you into that group.
Cool. Thanks, Liz. Thanks, Kate. All right. Yeah. So like Liz said, if you have questions after the fact, or you want to be further involved, please let us know, and we'll be happy to loop you into our efforts here. So the next thing I wanted to mention was there's a couple neighborhood developments, specifically the Dunkin' Donuts on Archer and Levitt. That one is, if you haven't walked by there, it is well under construction. It's actually almost done. I walked by there yesterday, the day before. They got some signs up. They got the driveway has been I think pretty much done. That permit actually for the driveway was actually issued on the 16th of June, which was 2 days before the Department of Buildings reissued their building permit. So that one was on hold for a little while, and then it was reissued on the 18th. In conjunction with that one, the same developer wants to construct a Taco Bell at 3322 South Ashland Avenue. Sorry, there's some people walking by. 3322, give me 1 second. Okay, 3320 South Ashland Avenue. Sorry, there's a special use permit filed on March 4th of this year. It was, like I said, filed by the same owner as a Dunkin' Donuts. It's for a 24-hour Taco Bell. I spoke with the alderman's office about this. He has expressed his desire to not have this there, and is looking to actually downzone that stretch of Ashland Avenue as a way to I don't want to say force, but help get developers to engage the community more rather than just building, in those certain areas. So this property that I'm specifically talking about is this one here. It's between 33rd Street and 33rd Place. It's currently a vacant building, so there's nothing going on there currently, but this is the one that they want to redevelop into that Taco Bell. So as you can see, there's some residences actually both north and south and across the street of it. So it's kind of a weird spot for it. If you go, I think it's a little bit further north is where like the Mariano's is and the White Castle. So it might be a little more appropriate there. But I believe this area still is within the TOD area of Ashland Avenue. So we might want, there might be some recourse there to actually try to get it to be TOD development. But if we hear anything else in terms of, whether it's going to be downzoned or if the developer reaches out to us, we'll be sure to pass that information along to you folks and anyone who wants to ask questions about it. That's really all I have about this particular property, as well as the Dunkin' Donuts. If anyone has any questions, please chime in.
And John, question about the downzoning. Oh, sorry,
Go
Anthony.
ahead, Kate. Go ahead.
Is he talking is he talking about Ashland from like the L to Pershing, or is he talking about like that stretch in the middle? Or the office wasn't specific. It was
it was just a very vague, like they're looking to downzone certain portions of Ashland Avenue. So I don't know if it's just kind of a block by block, or if it's the whole, what is that, 3/4 of a mile stretch between the L stop and Pershing. I think he wants to look further into kind of what that means and what the best sort of action is there. I believe also there has been some language drafted by the zoning department, but nothing has been passed or anything like that. So I think they're in the beginning phases of that. Anthony.
And for any of you listening, right now, who are relatively, opposed to that or just would like to see something else, I would encourage you to call or get in contact with the alderman's office about this. Unfortunately, they gave us, as an organization, a lot of runaround when it came to the Dunkin' Donuts. We were provided, we had been very diligent in following up and requesting and trying to get updates from them throughout, winter, the spring, and into the summer. I've met with them in their office, talked to the alderman over the phone, and basically was being provided with not accurate information at all about the status of the permits and the development itself. And the alderman, as John has said, has been pretty blustery about not wanting to have this particular development, this Taco Bell, come in here. He said he is opposed to it. Well, let's take him at his word and make sure that, he hears from the community that that would align with that, because I don't think, he is, being as honest as he could be. Well, I'll just put it that way. Definitely gave us the runaround on the Dunkin' Donuts, and I don't want that to happen again. If you're opposed to this, if you have suggestions as to what you want to see go in here, something else, maybe just residential, as John mentioned, this may even be still within the TOD zone. As you can see, it's completely surrounded by residential on all sides. Definitely an opportunity to do something different there rather than just another commercial space going to the same owner of these Dunkin' Donuts chains. He will need to hear from more people. So I would encourage you to call the office, leave a message and whatnot if you are inclined to do so.
Yeah, and if you don't want to do it directly, let us know, whether you're in favor or against it. We will pass along the information to the appropriate parties. It's not just, we're happy to be that intermediary for whatever your opinions are. And then Liz, I see your question in the chat about the ward, about the community meeting. I'm not sure. I didn't ask, but we can certainly follow up with that. Are there other questions, Jacob?
Frankly, I'm kind of sick of this practice of downzoning entire stretches of street and then forcing developers to go through the alderman anytime they want to build something that's higher than the downzone zoning, which is pretty much every time. It just forces more fees, forces you to do these extra legal steps of going through the community, who often, no offense, they often have pretty ridiculous requests. You're not gonna please everyone. Like, just to hear that he's trying to downzone a street is really frustrating to me, because I thought he was a little more like pro development, but then I hear he's going to downzone a street. Like, we don't know, like, if that all becomes residential and then like we theoretically get like a different alderman who doesn't like want businesses, we could be totally screwed there. Like, I don't like the practice of mass downzoning. I just think it's way too bureaucratic and just way too, what's the word I'm looking for?
Strong-handed?
Yeah. And then you have to go through the alderman's office for every single project. I don't like it.
Those are all fair, very, very fair points. So, I don't know what the alderman sort of is ultimate goal, whether it's just to drive developers to have more community engagement rather than none, or if there's some other thing, I can't speak to that, but I will certainly share your sentiments with the office as well, that there's got to be some kind of balance, right? Of you can't just, you're right, you can't be just like a down zone, but we also just can't be at the whim of whoever wants to throw around development. So there's got to be some kind of balance there, but I think you're right. Any other comments, questions?
So the Taco Bell, do they have the zoning to build the Taco Bell right now, or do they need a zoning change?
I believe it's currently a commercial spot. I don't recall off the top of my head. I think this is a very preliminary negotiations that the Taco Bell owner and the owner of this vacant property were having about even if they would just sell to them first of all. So I'd have to go back and look and see what the actual zoning is for
I
this
think
section.
over the phone, John, he mentioned that it was currently commercial zone,
Then it would be commercial then.
that lot. So.
Okay. So he's probably zoned by right, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, because I mean, if they have the zone, if the Taco Bell fits in the existing zoning, they have, to be honest, they have every right to build there, but if they need a zoning change, then that's when you should be getting the, community meetings and stuff like that to see what they want. I don't like this heavy-handed mass downzoning approach. I don't think that's really conducive to development in this city, and it's caused more problems than good.
Like I said, there has to be a balance between just unbridled development versus this sort of strong arm, like you have to check with everything. So there's got to be a balance here.
Yeah, we're talking about a Taco Bell. We're not talking about something that is going to really enhance the economy locally, right? We're talking about a Taco
owned
Bell.
by a guy who's got a reputation for wage theft too, which is also an issue. I'm not opposed to I mean, I would love to see a business going on that site. And honestly, because it's like a block from other fast food, it doesn't really bother me that it's fast food at that location. But I'd like to see something that caters to the neighborhood. I mean, we have plenty of real Mexican food. People who live here aren't going to go to Taco Bell.
I mean, I'm not really a huge fan of Taco Bell, to be honest. I could really care less, but I just if they theoretically, if they file a permit to build, I don't want to get involved in extra legal things where we try and revoke their building permit just because we don't like Taco Bell. If they have the right to build there, that's my only concern with the path we're
Does
sort of going
anybody
down right now.
know if they would need some other kind of permitting to have a drive-through? Is that anything different?
I think the driveway permit is the
only thing.
other thing. Yeah. But these are all good questions to ask. And like I said, Jacob, I will certainly bring up your point with the Alderman's office about, what the ultimate goal here is about, blanket downzoning and things like that. So these are all very, very good points.
Yeah, and we have plenty to show that's been put together by the community members here, in working with MPDC for 2 years, in the community plan, that I think clearly states that we want to do more with the space that we have. To your point, that doesn't mean that we have to, that the alderman needs to go ahead and downzone this from commercial to something else, but there are a lot of other options to consider, and it seems like the current developer kind of just gets what he wants, and it doesn't really reflect really what the neighborhood clearly wants, as stated through our community plan, right? So I think at the very least, what we want to try to do is engage with the alderman on that level to say, here's the feedback that you have to consider in this decision, at the very least, to say that is the only option just because the Taco Bell wants to develop there. That's all that we got, because I don't think this board here would agree that that's the only option, right? Thank you.
Yeah, I think Josh has a question. I see your hand raised. Go ahead.
So sorry, I was distracted there for a few moments, but I have potentially new news on this as of today, as of this afternoon. The alderman's office informed me that the developer has reconsidered this proposal. I think they've canceled it. I don't have any information as to why or what the anything behind that, but you can assume it has something to do with the downzoning. And just a couple broader comments. While I theoretically share Jacob's concern about sort of blanket downzonings, I think the issue here isn't so much about the specific business or the owner necessarily, but more about the development form and its incompatibility with TOD, eTOD. I think the problem is that while conceptually I agree in terms of not being in general very being favorable to sort of broad downzonings, I think the fact that in this location, in this stretch of Ashland, actually this type of development, where a 24/7 drive-through fast food restaurant could be built under current zoning is actually a problem. So I think that, especially because it's completely incompatible with eTOD. So I think the middle ground there would be, if there is a type of zoning that it could be changed to where something that is like the polar opposite of TOD and what we're aiming to do in this corridor and other spots in McKinley Park, I think that would be sort of a beginning spot for a middle ground to start the conversation.
Thank you, Josh. Okay. All right. I'm gonna move on to.
Sorry, Josh brings up a really interesting point, because we have these parts of the neighborhood that are designated for TOD, but is there actually is there any form of enforcement with that? Is there any form of like preferential treatment for building permits or something? And is that something that's, been discussed? Because it's not just our neighborhood that's going to fight that battle.
I don't know anything currently, but that's certainly something we can poke around and ask about. Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, I'm gonna move on to the next thing, just real quick, we're at 7:30. So, all right. So the next thing, so I just kind of want to go over a very brief census snapshot. So I pulled these things from the McKinley Park News website. They've got everything current up through the 2019 American Community Survey. So it's not quite the census, but it's pretty darn close. The census data is slowly being released over the next couple months. But just a couple things that I wanted to point out. The demographic change in the neighborhood from over the last 20 years. So we've seen an increase in our Asian population, our Asian neighbors, and then we also seen an increase in the number of units, number of occupied housing units in the neighborhood. So we've gone from about almost just under 90% to over 90% of the housing stock being occupied in the neighborhood. So it basically just cut the vacant housing numbers in half. So I'm not really sure what this means, but it is if you've walked around the neighborhood, you've seen a lot of for sale signs and people moving in and new neighbors, which is all a great thing for the neighborhood. And like we've said before, we want to help bring some resources in for people to use and walk to and visit in the neighborhood. That would be very, very beneficial for that, we think, based on the CMAP plan that we have, and we've got neighborhood feedback before. But this leads into what I was going to talk about for the ward redrawing. So since the census data comes new political boundaries, both from the local level, so all of the wards in this Chicago, to all the way up to the congressional level, so the congressional districts. The process for doing that started on July 26th. And if you guys aren't aware, normally, it's indication everywhere, but normally in Chicago, the aldermen redraw those ward maps. There are some municipalities where it's done by a nonpartisan commission or some kind of third party, but in Chicago, it is a closed door process that will be finalized around December of this year. There's a number of citizen-led initiatives that are looking to change that. These are, at this point, these are purely just recommendations. The aldermen don't have to follow this, and in the past, they have not followed stuff like this. But there's always a chance this year for where it can happen. So the two that I'm aware of that are kind of got the most voice behind them is the Chicago Advisory Redistricting Commission and Change Illinois. The Chicago Advisory Redistricting Commission actually held a meeting at Horizon Academy over here on Pershing and Western. I think it was 2 weeks ago that a couple of us attended, both virtually and in person. But they will have, I believe, 6 other meetings around the city, 4 of them virtually, 2 of them on the far side, I believe 1 in Inglewood. But they've been having meetings about this redraw for the last several months, and they've actually come up with a way for people to submit their own ward maps. So I've got an image here of the current ward map on the left side there. McKinley Park is kind of this section here. And if you notice, it's not the whole neighborhood. We're actually split between the 12th, 11th, and the 10th, or not 10th, 12th, 11th, and 25th ward. But one of the possible ward maps that the Redistricting Commission came up with was this one here on the right side, where all McKinley Park is in one ward, about half of Bridgeport is, and then going into Chinatown and Armour Square. This is one possible option. It is definitely not the last option. And like I said, this was a citizen recommended map for the ward. I will say that there's been a strong push this time around to get a predominantly Asian ward, and this would be it actually. So this one would, based on the current population demographics, about a 47% Asian population ward, which there hasn't not been that ever in Chicago, which would give a stronger voice to that community in the city council, but it would also give us as an organization and a neighborhood a stronger voice, because we would no longer have to appeal to 3 different aldermen to do something. We would now have to just appeal to one, which I think is a positive in this light. Just in this one possible ward map of however many ward maps there are being thrown out there. So we plan to submit some ward maps and some commentary to the redistricting commission before their community input sessions are over, which I believe it goes through the end of October. And you can do that as well, either both through us as well as through the little hyperlink down here at the bottom of chicagowards.org. They've got a whole website. It's really cool. It's really interactive. And you can comment on not just us, but any ward in the entire city. There's also links to the upcoming virtual and in-person meetings that you're able to scope out and attend if you want to as well, also on that website. So I encourage you to at least look at it. They've got some really cool features and really cool ideas that we've come across. Any initial thoughts on this that people have, maybe? Like I said, we plan on having a submission. If you guys want, like I said, if you guys want to be a part of that, if you have opinions, please let us know. We'll be happy to help kind of incorporate some that or most of that into what we ask for.
Hey, John, on the word map, I did want to hear from people kind of off the top of your head, like what is important, because I know like in what the council presents, and of course any individual can go on and submit testimony to these groups that are making these alternative proposals. You can also call the alderman and say what you want. It may or may not do you any good, but you can. But wanted to hear like some of the things that we've discussed, for example, are that the entire central manufacturing district really needs to be in our ward so that we can control our polluters. And for the same reason, we would really like to have both sides of Ashland. But are there other things like that that, you know, people would want us to include?
Nope, no comments, really.
Shocked. I mean, I will say, like, I actually worry a little bit. What I like about this proposed map is that, yeah, it puts us back together, but I worry a little bit because that also makes us the poorest community in this ward and the only one that is majority Spanish speaking. And I do like, as much as I think on the whole, it's good for us to be together, but I also worry about our majority getting drowned out.
Yeah, like I said, there's got to be a balance here. So we've got to figure,
Mhm.
you know, there's a way to kind of get it, make sure everybody's voices are heard in one way or another. And I think that's, you know, we're a part of that, but there's also, you know, we're just a cog in a wheel here. So
Could I ask a question?
I mean, I like the ward map.
yeah, who was that?
Right here, sorry, I don't
Go
have my
ahead.
video.
Go ahead.
So to the previous speaker's point, I agree with having as much control over the area that can, you know, the polluters. That is huge because it does feel like we're just this little pocket and everyone around us, you know, the decisions that are being made affect our well-being. Does this map address that in addition to, you know, giving the Asian community a stronger voice?
This one that, John, that you have up from the advisory redistricting committee does. Like, if you look at it, it includes it goes past Ashland to Bubbly Creek, and then it takes that other side of Pershing in it. So it does keep to that. And I think that actually came out of direct input that folks had at one of the recent meetings. So
Yeah, so go ahead.
I was just going to say that's great. And I also think it's incredibly powerful to have, you know, an opportunity to provide a voice to a community that, shocks me, in the entire history of Chicago has never had its own ward.
Right. So
I support that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'll let other people share your sentiments as well. And
Yeah,
you know,
as
like I said,
as a Latino in McKinley Park, I support that.
perfect. All right. Any other comments, questions? Like I said, this map is just a citizen suggestion. So I encourage you to put your own suggestions. If you like this one, you know, put your voice behind that. Put your friends' voices behind and that. You know, the more people we have speaking up about things like this would really make the case of you know, taking the redistricting power away from aldermen and putting it in, you know, power like you and I.
Hey, John, one last thing. Do you know what number this map is?
No, I don't. This was on their website.
Okay.
You have a question?
The only thing I wanted to ask about this is if in the probably slim chance that that city council can't come up with a map themselves, my understanding is then it goes to a commission, some sort of independent commission. Is there a mechanism to sort of, I don't know, work with or communicate this recommendation, which I would strongly support? I think it's overall a fantastic, it would be a great thing for the community to sort of communicate that to the commission. I mean, my guess is that would be the best chance to sort of have something like this enacted, as opposed to, you know, in the hands of city council, where it's just a massive horse trading exercise.
I'm sure there is a mechanism to get information to and from the commission, we can certainly look into that. I even found out there's a way where citizens can propose their own laws to city council too. So if you want to do your own law too, you can do that. So there's a way to do a lot of stuff. You just got to find the way how to do it, right? So I'm sure we can find something.
Hey, Josh, to answer your question, so the way a little bit more about the existing mechanism. So basically the aldermen are all in some dark room and they draw their map, right? And 40 of them have to agree to that map. And if they do, then that's what happens and there's no recourse. If they can get 10 of them to break ranks, it goes to a referendum where we will vote on which map to adopt.
Okay,
There you go.
that's helpful. Thanks, Jay.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All helpful information. Hope maybe there'll be a break this time around and we get some people and we get a stalemate and it'll be very different from the last 150 years. We'll see. All right. Kind of the last thing I want to talk about here is the community challenge grant that we submitted. So we sort of acted as a central hub to a couple of different projects here. Just an overview of the grant. The city's got about $10 million, give or take, to award up to the seven different projects across the city, roughly up to $1.5 million a piece. We submitted an application for McKinley Park in 5 different parts, and it was a collaboration between the community garden, us, McKinley Park Mutual Aid, as well as the play garden. We all had a couple different ideas, and we MPDCs took all those ideas and submitted it under one sort of umbrella. So I'm going to talk about some of those parts now. So the first part is, and I will say that all of these center around park usage. So the first one is skate rink improvements. So if you guys have ever noticed, the ice rink in McKinley Park is only open for about, 12 weeks of the year. It sort of just sits vacant the rest of the year. And so what was proposed was they used some of this money for new bleachers, a sound system, to resurface it, to put concessions in, as well as removable ramps, and then make it an all-year skate park or skate rink. So it would be ice skating in the wintertime, and then when the weather changes, it would be changed to rollerblade, skateboards, stuff like that can be used, and we can utilize that piece of land in the park all year rather than those 8 or 12 weeks that it's open in the wintertime. I do believe there's another park in the city that just did this. Was it Garfield Park, or it was a park close by that just
Midway Plaisance.
Well, what was it?
Midway.
Okay.
Midway
Yeah.
Plaisance by University of Chicago.
Yeah, so there's a much stronger case now for other parks to do this as well. So I think it's a great idea. I know when I go by and walk the dog and it's just chained off, I kind of I wish it was used more, and I'm sure other people do as well as proof of this submission here. So hopefully that is part of this grant that gets approved. The next couple pieces all have to do with the McKinley Park community garden in some fashion. So the first part of it is the community garden itself. So the current one that's out on Damon Avenue, between just to the east of the park, would get an expansion. So there'd be a couple additional plots added. There'd be some fruit trees added. There'll be an arts and crafts garden, some composting, and then an active permaculture site. Next to that would be a mutual aid garden. So currently the mutual aid garden is on a vacant piece of land that I believe was sold. So they wanted to relocate, and they figured that this was kind of one of the better spots to relocate to. It's technically park property, so there's really no threat of it being sold off in any near future or hopefully distant future. So they want to relocate their beds there. But then they also want to add in new wheelchair accessible beds. So these would actually be raised beds up to the height of a standard wheelchair, actually. So it would I'll allow for that. And then Next to that, was a proposal for this intergenerational play garden. So the proposal for that was, it's located by the community garden, very similar to the features of the play garden by the library. So if you guys have ever got a chance to walk over by the library, there's a lot of, it's about a 2 standard city lot wide green space with, water feature, kind of native plants. There's kind of like a more of a natural playground versus like a, plastic metal playground. But then they want to add in things like a seating or gathering places for all ages. And then the last piece of this, which sort of encompasses all this, they wanted to install fencing around this area, and then also extend the path that exists to the east of that to this area. So it would make it a little more easy to walk to, rather than walking over the mud and the bumpy grass if you have like a stroller, or if you're in a wheelchair, or whatever it is. They kind of wanted to make it a little easier. So there's a rendering here. So if you don't know the site, this is the site that I'm talking about. It's where the old Damon Avenue Bridge was. Like I said, the community garden is currently there. So it's these 12 plots right here. So they want to add some more. They would add the mutual aid garden here, as well as the play garden area here, and then things for pollinator garden, so some wildflowers, things like that. The orchard, I believe they're looking into a couple different kinds of trees that working with the park district is recommended with them, as well as other things like berry bushes and stuff like that. So I think it's a really cool idea, and all 5 of these things together, I think were really cool. So I don't recall, Kate, you submitted this. I don't recall what the time frame is for hearing about if not we've won, but I think it's probably end of the year, likely.
They said that, so this is the first round. And they said that, they'll look at it, they look at everything, and they're going to pick some finalists who will have more in-depth conversations to make sure that, people's plans are really doable. And then, and also doable within the budget, because it's up to $1.5 million. And of course the gardens, relatively speaking, no problem. The skate rink's a little bit of a bigger proposition. And also, from talking with Bree over at the park, they would want it to be staffed. So there's an operating expense. So there's things, but anyway, we should hear back. They said the second round of conversations is going to happen between October and December. And they were really that vague. So we'll find out when they get around to us.
Yeah. Okay, cool. We will keep an ear out, and we will certainly share whatever we figure out with you folks in the neighborhood. Like I said, this was a great thing, and we're hopefully going to be applying for more stuff like this in the future. The city is apparently very eager to just give away money, so we're happy to apply for that stuff. And hopefully get some of that for improvements. Any questions on this? No. And if you guys hear of a grant idea or anything that you think would be, that you have a good idea for, or you think that someone else might have one, but you're really not sure, please share it with us. We are more than happy to kind of put the call out for ideas and kind of brainstorm within kind of our larger network of folks that we can kind of pull from. So yeah, like I said, just we're happy to listen, happy to help in any sort of way we can. With that, there's a couple minutes left for kind of some open discussion. If you guys want to talk about something you guys heard, or you kind of want to hear about in the future. So if anyone's got any comments or questions currently, I'm happy to listen. Kate?
Yeah, at the risk of opening a can of worms, we're just kind of curious how people feel about the prospect of meeting in person soon.
We could do that. I will point out that sunset today at 7 o'clock.
Yes. And it's going to be cold by October, so we probably would be inside, which I don't know how everybody feels about, but that's.
yeah, if people feel
Kind of the question.
comfortable, we're happy to explore, you know, kind of getting back to our in-person meetings, but also keeping some sort of digital component as well to kind of keep those folks who are less comfortable than we would possibly be. So we're also open to ideas. You know, we hopefully would want to return to what we used to do, where we would kind of tour around the neighborhood and go different places, and you know, I always thought that was a kind of a fun thing to do. So if you know of a place that you would want to explore or see, that you think would be a cool meeting spot, please let us know. I'm hoping at some point we can get a meeting inside that new aviation school on Ashland Avenue. I think that'd be really cool. We did something like that with Razzmatazz on our first year or two, where we got a tour, and they opened the bar for us, and it was we saw their facilities, which was really cool. So I'm hoping we get back to something like that. Any other questions, comments, concerns? All right. If you think of something later, please feel free to email us or contact us on, any of our, our standard email, but also any of our socials. They're all up here. If you have ideas about what you want to hear presented on next, if you've got an idea, I want to learn about how zoning works. I want to learn how eTOD works, or whatever you want. Just let us know. We're happy to try to pull something together. We've done that in the past for things like the neighborhood history. We did one time. We did do one about how zoning in the city has evolved. We did it way early on when we first started. We've done a couple other things as well. So we're happy to do kind of an informational thing as well. I do want to point out, this has not been finalized yet, but if you remember a couple years ago, there's the C40 competition that was looking at uses for the buildings on Pershing here on 39th Street in Ashland, and between Ashland and Western. They put a call out a few months ago now for some student concept drawings. The winners of that contest will be announced according to the website on the 28th of September. So we'll see if this actually goes through. I will preface that these are just concept drawings. They're not looking to build anything or change anything, but they do want to show that they're still, interested in trying to find a use for those either vacant or underused spaces that at least the city owns, which are the three furthest east buildings in that stretch there. So we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll keep you guys informed about if we hear something cool or see a particularly cool design. So with that, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here, and if there are no other questions, I will give you guys 8 minutes of your evening back. I know you guys would all appreciate that, as I usually do in meetings like this. So going once, going twice. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming out and sharing the time. Have a good night.
Thanks, John.
Bye.